Look, it was only going to be so long before we're all like, Caitlin Clark's got to be back.
You know, she better get back soon because out of sight, out of mind.
Everyone anticipated the WNBA would struggle without Caitlin Clark, and now the numbers confirm just how significant that impact really is. The newest television ratings are out, and if there were any lingering questions about Clark's influence, we're now witnessing what happens when that influence is removed. While casual viewers are spending their time watching viral clips of Angel Reese missing open layups, they're skipping the actual broadcasts. Ratings are taking a steep dive, and the atmosphere around the league is starting to feel tense. We saw the early signs. Now, the floodgates have opened. This could go down as one of the most humbling moments in league history. And for the players who believe they held all the cards heading into the next CBA, reality is about to hit. With breaking updates surrounding Caitlin Clark's return, which I'll break down in this video, the comparison is about to become unmistakable. We're on the verge of a historic shift, and once it takes place, there's no going back. Let's jump in. But before we do, hit that like button to celebrate Caitlin's comeback, and subscribe for the latest on Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, and everything WNBA.
Oh wow, this is not good.
Fever performance post-injury. Now that the initial shock of Caitlin Clark's injury has worn off, we've seen the Fever go through an emotional and competitive roller coaster. Without her in the lineup, they dropped 2 straight, including a tough loss to a Connecticut Sun team that had yet to win a game. They bounced back with a solid victory over the Rising Mystics, and then followed it up by dominating the Chicago Sky. But just when things seemed to be stabilizing, they suffered another setback, this time against the Atlanta Dream. I'll dive into what's happening on the court shortly, because it's affecting the league more than most realize. But for those who've been paying attention, this wasn't unexpected. The moment Clark was sidelined for any meaningful stretch, the league was bound to feel the repercussions, and those signs started showing up almost immediately.
I can personally confirm the pronounced change in interest in Fever games without Clark. A week ago, I bought 4 tickets on StubHub to take my sports-playing nieces to the Fever Mystics game in Baltimore. The tickets in the same row are now less than half of what I paid.
Ticket prices collapse. Ticket costs for the Fever's road game against the Sky in Chicago nosedived the second it became public that Caitlin Clark wouldn't be playing. Prices plummeted quickly. We heard stories about families canceling their travel plans, changing schedules, and even asking for refunds. And once those headlines began circulating, you just knew certain figures in the league would use the opportunity to criticize these new fans. Sure enough, it happened.
There was one quote in one of the front office sports articles. It's unclear whether the teams will provide any compensation for fans who bought tickets to their games. And I was like, what? Grow up.
Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe. Reaction. Enter WNBA icon Sue Bird and her partner Megan Rapinoe, who essentially told fans to grow up. Great strategy, right? These are the very fans who are likely to be responsible for a surge in player salaries when the new CBA is negotiated, and they're being mocked for wanting to see the very athlete they paid to watch. Let's be honest, these weren't tickets selling at just a small markup. People spent hundreds of dollars to catch Caitlin Clark live. Once she was ruled out, those exact same seats were being resold for under $10. That's not just a drop, that's a total market collapse. It's like paying to see Harry Styles perform and then being told, actually, Kyle from accounting will sing some covers tonight. Alright, maybe not quite that dramatic, but fans had every right to be upset. And the situation gets even more concerning.
Injuries are a part of it. Again, I get it. It sucks. If you bought a ticket to see somebody and they're hurt, I get it. That is like a big bummer. But no, you would never say that about men's sports. If LeBron was out, or Steph Curry, or the big names were out for a couple weeks, they would never be like, oh, we're going to reimburse you guys. Sorry about that. Now you're just not taking the WNBA as a business. You're not seeing it as a business. So I'm like, yeah, she's hurt. It sucks. And the league will continue to go.
The league hasn't treated it like a business. Let's have an honest conversation about respecting the WNBA as a business. Because the truth is, for years, the league hasn't really operated like one, at least not until Caitlin Clark arrived. Historically, the WNBA has relied heavily on financial backing from the NBA, but the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, it doesn't depend on subsidies. She, along with the millions of fans she's brought with her, represent the league's best and perhaps only shot at true financial growth. This is the breakthrough moment the WNBA has been waiting decades for, and somehow it still feels like they're missing the mark. You don't push away the force behind your momentum. You support it, you protect it, you build around it.
Here comes Clark in transition. Clark, pull up three. You bet!
Ratings gap. With versus without, Caitlin Clark's impact on viewership was monumental from the start. 1.3 million tuned in just to see an Indiana Fever preseason game. That momentum continued, peaking at 3.3 million viewers for a highly anticipated game against the Liberty. Fast forward to the present, with Clark sidelined, and the contrast couldn't be starker. We've already touched on the ticket prices as one early indicator of shifting fan priorities. But there's another metric that tells an even more compelling story, one that often flies under the radar.
Betting interest on Fever games dropped as much as 50% last week at sportsbooks when star guard Caitlin Clark was out. The amount wagered on the Fever's 2 games last year at Caesars Sportsbook was roughly half as much as the team's first 4 games of the season.
Betting decline, plus time investment. Betting activity around WNBA games has sharply declined since Caitlin Clark went down with her injury. Unless you're placing novelty bets on Angel Reese missing layups, there's simply not as much action, and that actually matters. When fans start spending less money, that's one thing, but when they start spending less time, that's a whole different level of disengagement.
Even as good as that rating was, Caitlin Clark's good for about 1 million extra viewers.
Nielsen ratings collapse. According to Nielsen, nationally televised WNBA games have seen a drastic 55% drop in viewership since Caitlin Clark suffered her quad injury during the Fever's 92-88 loss to the Liberty on May 24th. Zoom in on Indiana's games specifically, and the numbers get worse. Since Clark's absence, nationally broadcast Fever games have seen a 53% decline. Before she was injured, these games were pulling in 1.8 million viewers on average. Now, just 847,000. That's not a dip, that's a nosedive. To be fair, when Fever games are shown on big networks like CBS, there's still fan interest, but even that has limits.
And a lot of people thought, well, nobody's going to support the Fever now that Caitlin Clark's not there, blah, 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 blah. These new fans aren't helping because they're not tuning in for games if Caitlin Clark's not involved. No horseshit. That officially dispels that myth.
Fever Sky ratings without Clark. The Fever versus Sky game still attracted 1.92 million viewers, which looks impressive, until you compare it to the 2.7 million who tuned in the last time Clark faced off against Angel Reese. Think about that. This game had all the ingredients for a ratings bonanza: heated tension, on-court drama, and controversy from their season opener. In that first matchup, Angel Reese threw a fit over a foul, probably because it made her convert a shot she usually misses. Then came nearly 2 weeks of media firestorms, online arguments, and non-stop coverage. Had Clark played in this rematch, there's a real chance it could have broken viewership records, but instead, the ratings spike Clark generated is disappearing, and the WNBA has every reason to be alarmed. Why? Because their other young star isn't living up to the billing.
Angel Reese is actually an embarrassment for women's basketball. She is so unskilled. There are so many laughable videos. She's become a meme and a punchline, and people keep trying to run her out there like she's the best and the brightest. At some point, enough is going to be enough, and you think these girls would wise up and be like, this woman's actually a problem for us. She diminishes the game. Caitlin Clark elevates the game.
Angel Reese hype backfire. Not only has Angel Reese failed to boost the league, she may be dragging it backward. Despite that, the league continues to push her as a face of the future, with the media eagerly playing along. One example stands out. CBS Sports posted highlights from her game against the Fever, and they only had 2 scoring plays to pick from. They posted both. One was an uncontested layup, and somehow they still captioned it with "making it look easy." Then there's this.
Yesterday afternoon, BET announced that they were honoring Angel Reese with their Sportswoman of the Year award. The announcement itself was enough to cause confusion, but the confusion was magnified when people realized It was the third consecutive year that Angel Reese was given this award.
Recently, Angel Reese was named BET's Sportswoman of the Year. She received the honor over Asia Wilson, a 3-time MVP and 2-time WNBA champ. Fans online were shocked. Some even thought it had to be a mistake. Now, to be clear, this isn't an attack on Reese personally, but the ongoing effort to fast-track her into stardom despite glaring issues in her fundamentals is doing more damage than good. Each missed layup turns into a viral meme. Every overhyped moment from the media gets called out. Sure, that creates online engagement, but it's not showing up in ticket revenue or TV numbers. And it's definitely not on Caitlin Clark's level. If anything, it's a step backward for both the league and for Reese, who would likely benefit from less media pressure and more time to improve her skills. Because in the end, performance on the court is what matters. When expectations are sky high and the delivery isn't there, casual fans check out. And there may already be signs that this is happening, even within the Fever fan base.
Wow, the Indiana Fever are just not fun to watch without Caitlin Clark.